prepare ourselves and put your hand over your eyes. I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. Now, if you'll just put your hand over your heart and extend out your arms, I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that we are abundant beings living in an abundant universe, cared for and guided by a God that wants to meet our every need and desire. We are abundant beings living in an abundant universe, loved and cared for by a God that wants to meet our every desire. See, we need to take that deep and hold on to it with all of our heart and all of our mind, and not let it go. Because what happens is it will set us free. This is one of the spiritual principles that will set us free from lack and limitation. It's one of the spiritual principles that will set us free from being small in the world. You know, there's so much language out right now that is the opposite of we are abundant beings living in an abundant universe cared for by a loving God that wants to meet our every need. We have words like downsizing and furloughs and pink slips and recessions and not enough to go around. And when we hear those words, we run the risk of becoming imposters. Imposters who believe this and act from that, as opposed to authentic people that believe and act from the spiritual truth that we are abundant beings in our lives. See, what happens is we begin to believe facts. And remember, facts are just fiction with history. That's what facts are. They're fiction with history. For instance, Hollywood will tell us that large women can't make it in Hollywood. Somebody needs to tell Queen Latifah and Melissa McCarthy that, because they don't know that. Some people will tell us that if you don't graduate from college, you can't be a success in this world. Somebody needs to tell Bill Gates that, because he doesn't know that. The Hollywood or people will tell us that if you have a speech impediment like a pronounced lisp, you can't be a broadcast journalist. Somebody needs to tell Barbara Walters that, because they didn't buy into that. They stayed with the truth of who they were, that they were whole, perfect, and complete, just as they were. Just like Jesus didn't buy into all of the evidence, all of the facts, which is just history, fiction with history. They stayed with the understanding that they are whole, perfect, and complete. Maybe they meditated on this book that we're doing right now in the series called The Abundance Book, and maybe not. But we're doing a series on this little book that will help us to begin to understand and react, not as the imposters who believe the evidence, but as the people who understand that we are already successful, that we already are whole, perfect, and complete. See, those people, Barbara Walters, Jesus, Melissa McCarthy, all of those people, Bill Gates, they understood that they were not victims. They didn't get into that consciousness. They understood right from the gate who they were. And one of the things that I believe that they understood is what I've told maybe about twice a year, I bring this up, that we learned from the great prosperity master Edwin Gaines, who says that if you want to hear the ka-ching in your life, if you want to experience abundance in your life, you must stop complaining. Now, she doesn't make a suggestion, oh, you ought to stop complaining. She says you must stop complaining about anything. And she says, here, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you another phrase to use whenever you hear something you want to complain about, because God knows if you're like me, I hear them all the time, and I just go start complaining right away. Now I have a new phrase that I can respond to any complaints with. And that new phrase is, God, that's great. Gas prices are going up. God, that's great. My sister got more than her share of the inheritance. God, that's great. Whatever it is. My boss is a whack job. God, that's great. If we can begin to do that, and the funny thing is, I was doing this at 9 o'clock service, and then I started apologizing my voice and started complaining about spring. And some guy in the church said, God, that's great. So you know how fleeting this can be and how focused you have to stay on this message. God, that's great. When we can get to that place in our lives where we can stop complaining and begin to appreciate what's here, we're more open. We're more open to the abundance that is already ours. So we've gone through this little book, and she's got 10 spiritual principles. Now here's the thing about this book. You can't just read this book. You have to study this book. You have to keep it with you and get it in a deep, deep way. Otherwise, you're going to read this book and you're going to say, this doesn't work. This will work. This will bring abundance into your life. Whether it's abundance you want in money, or whether it's abundance you want in creativity or compassion or whatever it is you want, this book will help you get there, but not by reading it. Only by studying this book will you get there. So we've gone through the first 6, and let's get to number 7 right now. The divine consciousness that I am is forever expressing its true nature of abundance. This is its responsibility, not mine. My only responsibility, and let me say that again, my only responsibility is to be aware of this truth. Therefore, I am totally confident in letting go and letting God appear as the abundant all-sufficiency in my life and in my affairs. That's a lot of words, and here's what it said. There's no God in the sky, but there is an energy and essence that we call God that is omnipresent. It's everywhere in everybody. It's a universal energy that flows through all of us, forever expressing abundance. This universal energy is not stingy. See, it's not stingy. It doesn't say, well, I don't know if I have quite enough, so I'm going to pare down over here so I can make sure the people over here have some. That's not how it works. It's all sufficiency. It doesn't need to pare down because it just keeps creating more and more and more and more for us in our lives. See, and it's not, the universal energy doesn't depend on conditions to give something to you in your life. See, a lot of us are still working on that deservability issue. Some of us deserve it, but others of us, because of the life we've lived, and I'm one of them, because of the life we've lived, we don't deserve abundance. We've squandered it before. We've wasted it before. We haven't been good stewards of our abundance, so we don't deserve any more. No, God does not care about your sins of yesteryear. God does not even look at your sins of yesteryear. Who's looking at them is us. God is pouring out the blessing, and what we're saying is, yeah, but you don't really know who I am. And every time we do that, we push our abundance back a little more and a little more and a little more. And then we forget what it says in this. It says, let go and let God. Let go and stop working at the world of effect. Stop trying to control everything at the world of effect. Some of us in this room are sober this morning because we let go and let God. Some of us have stopped working at the world of effect. We finally got it. You know, if we mix whiskey with milk, then I won't drink. If I stop drinking by 3 o'clock, then I won't be a drunk. If I will only wear my blue socks when I drink, then I will stop drinking. Because we're working at the world of effect. We're trying to make something work out here. And then finally we get it. We have to surrender. We have to let go and let God. We have to let go of the world of effect, of conditions, of trying to control, and we go inward to where the presence of God is, because that's where the cause is. That's where the cause of restoring us to sanity. See, God is all sufficient, meaning that none of us have to want from anything. And here's the amazing part of this teaching. Our only responsibility, he says, our only responsibility is to recognize it. That's it. That's our work, is to be aware of the truth that we live in an abundant universe and we are abundant beings. See, you and I, we make spirituality so complicated when it's simple. It's not always easy, but it's always simple. When we say that our only responsibility is to be aware that God is abundant in our life, we don't mean as a fleeting thought. We mean you have to take this deep. You have to take it deep until it stays there and not comes off. So you have to take it so deep that it's unshakable no matter what the evidence. And there's plenty of evidence out there to shake us. You have to take this so deep that it doesn't matter what's coming up. Because some of us call that faith. Some of us call that faith. But it's a belief that is absolutely unshakable. That God is all sufficient and giving to us all the time. See, no matter what the doctor says about our prognosis. We have a man in the church right now who has a brain tumor. The doctor said it's stage 4. There's very little hope for you. His faith was unshakable about the all-sufficiency of God. In all of the evidence that was on the outside, he stayed strong with that faith. And right now, I'm happy to say he's going through radiation, he's going through chemotherapy, and he's doing very, very well. It's an unshakable faith. It's that kind of unshakable faith that says, I don't care what people say that I won't be able to get into my college of choice. I'm going to keep an unshakable faith that that's where I'm going because I know God is all sufficient. See, we need to take this stuff so deep. I don't care how many times I've slipped in my recovery from whatever addiction I'm working on at the moment. I don't care how many times. I don't care what the evidence is. I have an unshakable faith that I'm going to be successful in returning myself to wholeness in my life. That's what we need. But in order to do that, we have to work at the level of cause. We have to say, evidence, you no longer interest me. I'm staying only at the level of cause. Number 8. My consciousness of the Spirit within, as my unlimited source, is the divine power to restore the years the locusts have eaten, to make all things new, to lift me up to my high road of abundant prosperity. This awareness, understanding, and knowledge of Spirit appears as every visible form and experience that I could possibly desire in my life. Now, I want to just go over again what we said last week. My consciousness, nobody else's consciousness can do you for you. Nobody else can make you an abundant being. Only your consciousness. God can only do for you what God can do through you. So if you're waiting for someone else to make you wealthy, stop now. If you're waiting for Jesus, if you're waiting for Buddha, if you're waiting for Lao Tzu, if you're waiting for your great Aunt Minnie, it doesn't matter. You have to stop because it's none of them. It's your consciousness. God can only do for you what God can do through you. Now, you can look at other people's consciousness and you can use their consciousness to help you stretch yours. You can say, wow, look at what that person is thinking and doing. For instance, you may want to be a world-renowned artist as well as Nadine. And you can take her consciousness and say, if Nadine can do this, maybe then I too can come back from Morocco and be on my way to Kenya with my artistry. But you have to it goes through your consciousness, not through hers in your life. can restore the years the locusts have eaten, can restore the years the locusts have eaten, can restore the money you lost in your divorce. It can restore the creativity that your third grade teacher stole from you when she said, "Oh, honey, suns aren't green, they're orange or yellow, only orange or yellow." You can restore that. You can restore the passion in your marriage when you became a human doing instead of a human being. It can restore the years the locusts have eaten in your life. See, it can make you new. It can make your relationship new in your life. Is it magic? No. No, it's not magic at all. It's spiritual principle that is studied, that is understood, that becomes a reaction. See, we have to stop waiting until we don't have any more money in the bank or our partner is walking out the door and think, "Ooh, I better get that little green book that Reverend Georgia was talking about and study it some more." No, you want to do it before any of that happens. Number 9. When I am aware of the God self within as my total fulfillment, I am totally fulfilled. I am now aware of this truth. I have found the secret of life, and I relax in the knowledge that the activity of divine abundance is eternally operating in my life. I simply have to be aware of the flow, the radiation of that creative energy, which is continuously, easily, effortlessly pouring forth from my divine consciousness. I am now aware. I am now in the flow. Well, metaphysicians are some of the windiest people I've ever met in my life. What he's saying is this: when I'm hooked into divine spirit, I'm relaxed. I'm not anxious. I'm relaxed. And that's when the flow starts. That's why our founder said we have to develop a consciousness of calm expectancy. Because when I'm hooked in, I'm relaxed that the flow is going. It's what Dr. Michael Beckwith says when he says, you make the connection and the correction will take care of itself. When we hook in to that divine consciousness. But see, here's what happens. We start spinning our wheels. We're trying to make things happen. We try and grab our abundance. See, God doesn't need any help from you and me. God has just given the abundance out. Doesn't need any help to create abundance. God did not need help with the sun this morning or with the moon last night. God was perfectly capable. God doesn't need any help beating your heart right now. It's just happening. God doesn't need any help moving that blood through your system right at this moment. God does not need any help in any of those things. God doesn't need any help dissolving tumors. God doesn't need any help restoring your marriage. God doesn't need any help turning that teenager in your life around in a new direction. God doesn't need any help about any of that. We simply have to put our thought on God, which means our thought on all things positive in those areas in our lives. See, when we finally get that source, God, presence, abundance can only do for us what God can do through us, and us is a big thing here. See, it's not just me, it's not just you individually, it's us, what God can do for us. Your blessing could come from anywhere. Turn to a neighbor and say, if you want to bless me, it's good. See, just that. No more talk. Just that. If we could get that our blessing can come from anywhere, it comes from God. Whatever the channel is that it comes through in our lives. And even from ourselves. So let's go on to the last one, number 10. I keep my mind and thoughts off this world, and I place the entire focus on God within as the only cause of my prosperity. I acknowledge the inner presence as the only activity in my financial affairs. as the substance of all things visible. I place my faith in the principle of abundance and the action within me. I keep my mind off this world. Off this world. Now, I think he uses this, he winds it up with this principle because he knows this is where we get screwed up. He knows this is where we make our biggest mistake. We look at this world and we think that that's what's happening. See, and that's where we get our block. Our ancestors were hunters and gatherers of food. We happen to be hunters and gatherers of why God's not working in our life. Hunters and gatherers that God has forsaken us, or at least fallen asleep on the job. And it's everywhere. We have to be vigilant about it. When I prepared this sermon on Thursday, I got on the Sacramento Bee. And I looked at just a few of their headlines in the Sacramento Bee. Police seek suspect in bank robbery in Roseville Safeway. More details on the machete, knife, pig, and pipe fight in Elk Grove. Another one. Man faces murder charge in fatal shooting of friend wearing a bulletproof vest. This is just one day. Modesto police arrest Downey High School employee on charge of sex with a minor. Man sentenced to prison for assaulting a woman in the Antelope area school ground. Nevada Highway Patrol identifies a man who died in a wrong-way crash from a drunk driving incident near Reno. This is my favorite. Neighbor holds a Muslim couple at gunpoint when they try to pick up their son at his friend's house. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Now, you would be doing yourself a great favor if you agreed not to read the newspaper for 1 week. And believe me, if something happened that you absolutely had to know, like there was going to be an earthquake at 5 o'clock, somebody would call you on the phone and tell you, going to be an earthquake 5 o'clock. Otherwise, we don't need to read that and get it in our consciousness when we're working on our abundance. But if you must, make every one of those headlines that you see a prayer request. A prayer request. So that you hear that about that Muslim couple trying to pick up their boy at his friend's house, and some neighbor comes out with a pistol. See the neighbor coming out and saying, "What a beautiful day it is today. I'm so glad you're in the neighborhood. I hope your son had a great time with his little friend." Whatever it is, just see the positive outcome of that situation, and I promise you, you will use these principles to turn this world entirely around. Well, here's the thing. I hope this series has helped you a little bit, but it won't help you enough if you don't get the book. Now, we have, I think, one or two, maybe we don't have any, I don't know. We have a couple left maybe out in our little book stand, but you can get it on Amazon. It's called The Abundance Book by John Price. Get it. One woman at the 9 o'clock said, I've studied this book and I keep it in my bathroom so that when I take a bath, I simply open it up and I read one of the principles, and while I'm in the bath, I begin to just contemplate that principle. It's a beautiful way of studying. So if you want to be more abundant in your life, you want more of whatever it is, maybe you want more friends, maybe you want more travel, maybe you want more compassion, maybe you want to be easier on people and not so judgmental. Whatever it is you want, get this book and begin to study it. Let's take this message into prayer, knowing that there is one power. It's the power of love in our heart, power of joy. Is one power that powers us. And everything unlike that power, we've simply invited in. We can invite it out now. We can let it go. And just be the one power. I am love today. I am joy today. I'm adventure today. I am compassion today. I give thanks for the Great One for always being within me with all of the qualities of life itself. I give thanks for every person in this room who came today and said, I just want to hear some good music and a spiritual message to help me through my week. I want to give special thanks to Rosanna Herber for stepping up and working with our video and and for Billy for stepping in for Sam, and for our beautiful musicians for stepping in for our guys who are on tour. Just give thanks. And our dance ministry, and Nadine for fulfilling us in such a beautiful way through art. I give thanks for all of that. I release this word into the law, and together we say,